say, I did just film this video on what I thought would be a nice new filming app to try to fix the white balance issue I've been having on these videos with these books. And the entire audio track did not pick up. It's been a really rough past 23 years. Anyways, hi everyone, my name is Caitlin. Welcome back to my video. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're gonna be doing something fun and fresh. And I am excited because today are my Science Fiction Fantasy Awards. Woohoo! Woohoo! So, as we all know, Goodreads does their little genre awards for new releases that come out. But like, guess what? I don't care about Goodreads and their opinions because it's all for the people I give them the most money. So I took it upon myself to go through and give this award, this trophy, to all of the best books that I've read past 2 years, science fiction fantasy. This award right here. If you would like it, authors, please inquire below. I do only have one. It does have my name on it, but we can arrange something else. Anyways, without further ado, let's just hop right into the awards, man. Let's go right in. So, our first category is Best Beginner Science Fiction Fantasy Novel. And the award for Best Beginner Science Fiction Fantasy Novel goes to A Darker Shade of Magic Trilogy by V.E. Schwab.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause. Thanks. I appreciate it.
I absolutely adore this trilogy. I think it is amazing. Without knowing, it was actually one of my first intros, dabbles into adult fantasy. I was a big reader in high school, fell out of it a little bit in college, but I remember reading the audiobook to this book. And then I came back around and I read the entire trilogy and it was really good and I absolutely loved it. So the reason why I say this is the best for beginners coming into adult fantasy is if you've read YA fantasy, you see very similar tropes in this book. We have very similar fantasy tropes, but it's just a little more mature. You know, we have a little more mature topics and content going on in this trilogy, this world, this series. But at the same time, it has a very small cast of characters. And I feel like with fantasy, that's something that can get a lot of people really worked up on, is the cast of characters. It's not that big, and the writing, the first one starts off a little smaller. We get bigger as we go on, but shh, it's okay. This one is small. I love it. So that is why I feel as though this, A Darker Shade of Magic, deserves the best beginner book in the adult science fiction fantasy world. And there you go. There we have it. Next category is Science fiction fantasy books most worth the hype. And for this, what else could I say besides the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee? We all knew this was coming. If you've seen my channel the past month, you've seen that I have recently read Jade City, now to have finished Jade War, and I can tell you, Fonda Lee has done something with my heart, and it cannot be undone. It cannot be. Not only are all her characters sexy, but everything else in this book is too. From the politics to the world building, the fucking economics building, the culture building, beautiful. 10 out of 10 for all of them. Miss Fonda Lee, you know what you're doing, and there is no doubt about it. It is worth all of the hype that I've read about this book. I absolutely adore the Greenbone Saga. Adore it. And I cannot wait for Jade Legacy to come out at the end of the month. I am going to die. Literally and figuratively going to die. Next category is science fiction fantasy with the most expansive universe. y'all assume that, like, I made this category specifically for one book series or one cluster of books, right? I'm sure you can assume what books, right? I'm sure you can assume. I'm in fact positive that you can assume the books I'm talking about. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. They're wonderful. And yes, did I put this category in specifically for the Cosmere novels? I finally said it. Yes, I did. I did in fact do that. But guess what? It's because I love Brandon Sanderson, and you would know that if you've been on my channel literally at all. Because they're in the back every single time. Anyways, so the Cosmere is by far, to me, the most expansive. I'm sure, you know, I haven't read all of Discworld, so, you know, but I have read all of the Cosmere novels, and boy, are these fuckers good. I don't have the Wax and Wayne books currently, but I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get them. I do have the rest, and I absolutely adore it. If you want to start out, if you have never read a Brandon Sanderson, and you are thinking, fuck, where do I even begin? Where do I start out? I suggest you start out with Mistborn, The Final Empire. You get your way through this trilogy. You make your way to Warbreaker. You read this. You make your way to Elantris. You read that. This could also be read before The Final Empire and The Mistborn, but I suggest not, because this is not one of his best works, and you might fall out of Brandon Sanderson if you read this first. So I suggest this after or before Warbreaker, but before the Stormlight Archive, which is the last. You read this last. Read the Stormlight Archive last. I promise you, it'll be so much more rewarding if you save this delight of a series for last. Okay, I know it might be hard, but it's rewarding if you do. I didn't personally, and I feel as though I missed so much, specifically warning with Azure and Vasher. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. Ends that sword. If you know, you know, though. So yes, I highly recommend reading Warbreaker, specifically Warbreaker and Mistborn, because we do see some tie-ins with the metals in this book that makes me like cry. Anyways, yeah, I just really love the Cosmere. I love how all of the books are different, yet they grow upon the lore of the universe, the Cosmere. And I get some people say, you know, he might be a little self-righteous and religious. I don't give a shit. I can't see it when I read it. So, let me fucking enjoy the things that I enjoy. Thank you. All right. Anyways, that is this category. The next category is science fiction fantasy with the most lyrical prose. And for that, we have the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin.
Thank you.
I do not believe I've talked about this series as a whole on my channel yet, which is why I made sure to include them in this video. Boy, this is a superior trilogy. It is phenomenal. It is amazing. It is wonderful. Writing-wise, hello, this is the only book I've ever read, adult book, that uses second-person point of view. You do this, you do that, you said, you run, you walk. And I love that. It's such a change of pace, such a change up from what we normally read in our books, and I really dug it. Also, this is such a different world than what we live in, yet their problems mirror our own. And I really appreciate that about N.K. Jemisin's work. She always manages to weave in all of those real life issues into her very, very high fantasy science fiction worlds. And I absolutely admire and adore N.K. Jemisin's work. If I could write a novel quite as perfect as some of hers, or someone like R.F. Kuang, someone like, you know, quite honestly, anyone in this pile, I'd die happy. But N.K. Jemisin for me just has a special type of writing and makes special choices that really set her work apart from the rest. And if you have not read the 5th season or this trilogy, the Broken Earth trilogy, you definitely should. And this is your sign to read it today, right now. Get it at your library, get it at the bookstore, get it online, illegally download it. Don't save that for last resort, because we want N.K. Jemisin to get her coin, get her bag, but a girl's gotta read somehow. Next category is most gripping science fiction fantasy book, and that award goes to The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Who else? You were thinking, Caitlin, where is the Poppy War? You know, you're going through, you're on word number 5. Like, where is Miss R.F. Kuang? Where is the Poppy War? It's right here. Don't you worry. It's most gripping science fiction fantasy. And that is for good fucking reason. So, to me, the Poppy War is imperfect perfection, because the whole point of this book is everyone is so thoroughly flawed. It's ridiculous. But it works in the best way. It's like, and this is the best way I can describe it because I was a dancer for 15 years. But this trilogy is like a literal 3-part ballet act. I see it on my head as this one theatrical dance, this one theatrical project. And to me, that is something that shows how gripping it is to me. I mean, I don't know what you guys envision when you read. That is what I envisioned with this. It was like one big production, theatrical production, one big dance. And it was absolutely gripping. All of the characters are flawed, but they work together perfectly, and they gel together in harmony, but then clash so hard, like oil and water at some points, and it's just so gripping. And the politics and historical references and depth in this is uncomparable. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I can't. This is coming from a person who, prior to reading The Poppy War, I did know a little bit about the history that took place in the time that Kuang based, loosely based these books on. So I really appreciated seeing some of the things and some of the details that Kuang added into this trilogy. And if you haven't read it, I highly suggest you do. What are you doing? Because you haven't been on my channel for very long, because then you would have read this. Like, look at this beautiful Illumicrate edition, okay? Let's take a moment. Okay? Wait till you see. It only gets better from there, okay? It's on that. It's on here. Like, what? 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 You could put these fold-outs, actually, either, if I get cremated, you can frame them, put them on my gravestone, or, shove them in my casket with me. I can be holding them out on, like, this. Like, like the tanning foils, like Squidward holds out. I could hold it out like that, and I want to be buried with this, because I can die looking at these fold-outs for the inside of this. I just truly could. Anyways, I'm getting out of hand. That's the most gripping science fiction fantasy book, in my opinion. Most fucked up science fiction fantasy series is our next category. And the person that wins this award goes to the Lock Tomb trilogy by Tamsin Muir. I feel very brain dead and fried. I'm not fried, and I normally am, but I feel fried. Anyways, the amount of fucked up in this book is insurmountable, if you think about it, okay? Insurmountable. The first book, okay, we follow Gideon and Harrow, destined to be enemies, but also destined to be lovers. Okay, we start out with Gideon and Harrow. They go on our little journey together to this little house in this little mansion with all the other little duos who are slowly one by one killed off as we get to know them and love them very dearly. And then at the end of this book, we all know the fucked up shit that happens. And if you've read Harrow the Ninth, that shit is even more fucked up and twisted than Gideon, because we are now dealing with an unreliable narrator, people. Wah, 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 wah. I'm sorry, I'm like so beyond out of it right now. It's like out of this fucking world with where I'm feeling in my headspace right now. Anyways, so yeah, the second book, super fucked up. You know, we follow Gideon, an unreliable narrator, the entire time, but at the end, or you follow Harrow, not Gideon. And at the very end, Harrow realizes what the fuck is going on, and you look back and you're like, holy shit, this shit's fucked up. You know, not fucked up like Tender as the Flesh, where they're eating humans, fucked up, but like, this is fucked up for science fiction fantasy. I like it. I'm digging it. I'm digging the vibes. So, this category is won by Gideon the Ninth and the Locked Tomb trilogy. Who is Alexi the Ninth? I want to know. And the next category is Best YA Young Adult Science Fiction Fantasy. And the winner for this category is An Ember in the Ashes Quartet by Sabaa Tahir. And boy, is this one good quartet. I absolutely love it. Still manages to be really popular on spaces like Book Talk and in the YA community. Yet, someone like me, who really is not a huge YA reader, not a big consumer and enjoyer of YA, loved and consumed the shit out of this quartet. Loved it. It still manages to hold a flame to very serious and mature topics and fantasy tropes, yet ties it all back to them still being kids and still being young adults trying to live their little lives and grow up. And I absolutely adore this book series for that. Sabaa Tahir has a way with words, and I love it. If you have not read it, I highly recommend it. I read the first one when it first came out and never continued because, like I said, lost my love for reading in college, but I finished this last year and really couldn't rave about it enough. I love it, and I really recommend you guys read it if you haven't already, but I'm sure you probably have. Let's move on. The next category is Most Underrated Science Fiction Fantasy Novel, and that, if you've been on this channel, you will know, goes to The First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. And the rest of the following books in the series, trilogy, whatever the fuck it is. I think I've seen Riley, maybe, possibly Mina Reeds talk about this. No one else. Absolutely no one else. Zip from the choir. Zero from the peanut gallery for this book, which literally blows my mind because, you know, what? If you love LGBTQIA plus rep in your books, here's a science fiction fantasy for you. This shit is feisty. And the author described it as LGBTQIA plus meets Star Wars, and wow, I couldn't have put it better myself. This gives me huge Star Wars vibes. We are watching the rise of a hero and the fall of someone's character, and they're gonna become a villain. I can feel it. Astrid. I can feel it, Astrid. I can feel it, Astrid. I can feel it, Astrid. If you could pick up one book from this entire video, this entire awards video, you could only pick up one book from your library, only one book from the Libby app, only one book from Barnes & Noble. Pick up The First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. Ow. I don't know why I was slapping it like that. It's got a sexy ass. But anyways, please read this, even if you hate it, so that way I can have someone to talk to. We can have discourse if you hate it. That would be fun. But like, no one has read this, so I'm talking to myself. Next category is Most Evolved Science Fiction Fantasy series. And for this, I chose the Bone Season series by Samantha Shannon. Because boy, has that changed from point A to point Z. Wow, is that much different. If you've started the first book or have read the first book and you thought, oh, this is not for me, like this love plot line, I don't like where it's going, not for me, we're gonna pass on this, I highly implore you to change your mind, to go back and read that second book, because boy, do we get a totally different vibe, totally different plot when we go into the second book moving forward. And I personally love where it went. If you can tell, it gets political. It gets political. That seems to be a common running theme in the books that I enjoy. The book gets political, and it houses really important themes and fun little tidbits. I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. The Bone Season is an urban fantasy, which I don't read a lot of urban fantasy, but this is a super unique system based off of clairvoyance magic. And while it's an urban fantasy set, you know, with all of the same countries and cities, they're a different government. Oh wait, is this called dystopian? Is it a dystopian novel? Is dystopian science fiction fantasy? I apologize if it's not, but my point is, this book series is not just about the two love interests and their weird connection and the way they weirdly got together. It's not. It's about so much more, and it's evolved so much since that first book. So I really recommend you pick up Bone Season. If you've already picked up Bone Season and didn't want to pick up the second one, pick up that second book. I think it's the Mime Order. Maybe I'm wrong. Pick it up. It's super good. Highly recommend it. And lastly, our last category is most accessible science fiction fantasy series. And I have to give this to the Murderbot trilogy, or Murderbot trilogy. Where did I get trilogy from? This goes to the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. And wow, so many reasons as to why I can say, personally, this is a very accessible science fiction fantasy book for all readers. First of all, they're novellas, so they're pretty short. That's much shorter than the rest of these really dense science fiction fantasy books. I know a lot of people look at these books and they're super big and they get really fucking scared. I would too, I understand. But Murderbot is short, sweet, and to the point, and he's relatable, he's funny, he's one of the lads, he's just like everyone else, he's just like one of the dudes. You know, he's watching his TV in his head and ignoring all of his responsibilities, just like me, until it's time to go pow pow pow, bitch. Pow pow pow, like Cupcake says in her song, Mosh Pit. So yeah, I absolutely love Murderbot. I think it's funny, I think it's relatable, even though he's a robot. And I think they're short, sweet, and to the point, and their audiobooks, I've done them, you know my love for audiobooks. Their audiobooks are pretty solid. So, like I said, if you are looking for a science fiction fantasy, but you're not a big reader, you're scared to dip your toe into science fiction fantasy, you don't know where to start, start with the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. Or maybe start with the first one in this, the Darker Shades of Magic. But I believe this is the most accessible, and that's best for someone who's already read fantasy. But anyway, I digress. Murderbot Diaries is very good. That's it for this video, guys. That's it for the awards. I hope all of the authors reach out so they can receive their very not plastic, very real award that is very much not plastic and not dusty. Not dusty whatsoever. Not dusty at all. Anyways, if you like the video, if you like the Science Fiction Fantasy Awards, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. Comment down below. What is your ranking for this list? If you want, do a video. Do your own Science Fiction Fantasy Award show. I would love to watch it. If you didn't like it, make sure you unlike the video, dislike it actually, then proceed to leave a hate comment. Maybe it'll be about this totally real and authentic trophy, maybe it'll be about how scatterbrained I am today. But please leave one, because I'm asking for it. And I want to feel something in this cruel world, and I feel absolutely nothing. So maybe some pain and hate comments would make me feel, alive again. So, like I said, leave some hate comments down below. My name's Caitlin. I hope you enjoyed. As my professors once said, all press is good press as long as you have my name spelled correctly. That's Caitlin. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.